Hello and welcome to my August wrap-up. If you remember my August TBR, I had some pretty big plans for my August reading, and then if you've seen my September TBR, you will know that I did not succeed in hitting my August goals. So I'm a bit disappointed. August was not the best reading month for me, but I can report it was my second best reading month. Which is very impressive considering throughout August I just kept thinking, this is a terrible reading month, I'm not hitting my goals, I'm not doing very well, I'm not reading as much as I could be. I still somehow managed to pull out my second best reading month and read over 4,000 pages. My goal was 8,000 pages though, because my best reading month was April with 7,500. Every other month I seem to average around 3,000, so hitting 4,000 in August does make it my second best, but is nowhere near the goal that I wanted to hit. So mixed feelings about August, but technically was my second best reading month of the year. My reading in August varied more than it usually does. I dabbled in genres that I don't usually, and I started some books that I haven't finished but haven't DNF'd. I don't know if I'm going to mention them here, maybe I will briefly. But yeah, let's just crack on with it. The first book I read in August was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is book 2 in the Shades of Magic series. This is a reread for me and was, I believe, my third time rereading this. I love this series, that is no secret. This is book 2 and is my favourite in the trilogy, and I loved it just as much this time as I have the previous times reading it. I just love Delilah Bard as a character. She is my favourite, and this book focuses a lot on us developing Lila. This was also my Patreon book club pick, and we discussed how it was actually a lot of our favourites of the series, despite the fact that not a lot of plot actually happens in this book. In terms of like the overall plot of the trilogy, not a lot happens in this one at all. It is much more like learning magic and trying to lay some political landscape, but it's a lot more character-based and not a lot of plot. But because Delilah is my favourite character and we have a lot of Lila work in this one, it is my favourite. I will also mention the last book I read in August because that was A Conjuring of Light, also by V.E. Schwab. So I did complete my reread of the trilogy in August, this one being the last one. Not my favourite. We established this as actually my least favourite of the trilogy, so my favourite is book 2, which I feel is rare, because normally middle books are not my favourites. Or anyone's favourites, I feel. And the last one is my least favourite. But the last one got the same core power rating as the first one did, which was 9.0 on core pile, and A Gathering of Shadows got 9.14. So there's not really a lot in it, but that's how that went. If you are unfamiliar with these books, this series, the Darker Shade of Magic series, A Darker Shade of Magic is book 1. It follows a magician called Kel who is an Antari, and that type of magician are one of the few remaining who can travel between the alternate Londons. And there's 4 different dimensions with a different London. You've got Red London, White London, Grey London, and Black London, and Kel should not transport things between these Londons other than the letters that are permitted by the royal family. And in maybe smuggling something he shouldn't, the series of events is kicked off. This series is one of my favourites. It's nostalgic to me, even though the first time I read it was, I believe, in my adult life. I was 20 when I first read this series, so it was definitely in my adult life, but my earlier adult life. But it's still nostalgic to me because when I read these the first time, I loved them so very much, and they hold a very dear place in my heart, so happy to have completed my reread of this trilogy. Next up in August, I read The Faraway Paladin Omnibus Volume 1, or Omnibus 1 even, which is volumes 1 and 2 of the manga of The Faraway Paladin, and I very much enjoyed this. This is about a young boy who is raised in an abandoned village by 3 undead. A skeleton, a ghost, and a mummy. And there's a lot of questions about, like, why he's in this situation, how he came to be in this situation, why these undead are raising him, what they are raising him for, because they seem to be just teaching him how to survive out in the world of the undead, but also just how to survive as an adult. But how have we got into that situation? There are some answers at the end, and I am very keen to get to Omnibus 2 of this. I'm hoping to get to that very soon. I had a great time. I enjoyed. I recommend. And on Core Pile, this one got 4 stars with a rating of 7.14. Next up is where we start to dabble in a genre that I don't normally dabble in, and I read a romance book. I read Lights Out by Kayla James. I read an F1 romance. This is very clearly based on Charles Leclerc, who is a Ferrari F1 driver. It was very cute. We follow a girl whose name I can't remember, and a guy whose name I can't remember, but is based on Charles Leclerc. She is a driver, she wants to be a driver, but in the world of F1 there are not female drivers, and she is given an opportunity to join an F1 team with this guy. And it's a romance, so of course romance sparks between them. I had a good time. I thought the only reason I would enjoy this was because of the F1 base, and I feel like the F1 basis of it was very good. Clearly the author knows her stuff about F1, which was great, but I ended up enjoying the characters. I had a good time, and I think in that moment, when I read it, I do have a vlog of when I read it. I desperately wanted something that was cute and happy and fluffy because I was not in the healthiest mindset at that point. I was not feeling too great myself, and I just wanted something happy, and that is what that gave me. Despite the fact that there are some heavier topics in there as well, the relationship made me happy. From a critical point of view, there were errors in the book in terms of like typos, which made me a little bit uncomfortable every time I stumbled upon one of those. And sometimes things did just like snap, happen, convenient, like we didn't build up to certain things, it was just bam, and then this happened, and bam, and then that happened, and it was a little bit jarring sometimes, but overall I had a good time, was surprised that I had a good time, and gave it 3 stars. Next up on my list is one that I forgot that I read. I'm referring back to my Core Pile spreadsheet over here, but it is The Seep. The Seep by Chana Porter. This is a sci-fi novella that I picked up kind of wanting something a bit unsettling and uneasy, thinking along the lines of Annihilation, Jeff Vandermeer, those vibes, Our Wives Under the Sea, that sort of uneasy, unsettling vibe. And that is not what I got with The Seep. I was a little bit disappointed because it wasn't what I was anticipating it being. And it has proven to be very forgetful to me. But from what I can remember, it is about an alien invasion, and the alien is the Seep. But the Seep is all giving. The Seep gives humanity everything it could possibly want. Death is no longer a problem. Anything a human wants, if you want to sprout wings, sure. If you want to start your life again as a baby, the Seep provides. If you want to completely alter your physical appearance, the Seep can do that for you. And then everything in the world becomes very, like, community-owned, and the Seep kind of controls humanity being nothing but joy and happiness, and everything is great, and everything is what you want. And our main character, whose name I cannot remember, but our main character is a trans woman, and she doesn't believe that what the Seep has done for humanity is good, and thinks that humanity still needs what makes humans human, and that includes death and the finality of death. That includes sorrow and pain and all the things that enable humanity to create art. And when I talk about it like this, I'm thinking like, yeah, that's actually, you know, that's a good story. But it just didn't work for me the way that I wanted it to, and it didn't make me feel uneasy or uncomfortable the way that I wanted it to. So hasn't quite stuck with me, and hasn't been one that I've remembered, which is a shame, unfortunately. Next up, I read Cody by Jared Cullum. This is a graphic novel about a girl and a bear. This young girl does not have many friends. She is away from home, living with her nan, I believe, and she doesn't have any friends, doesn't get on too well where she is, and she stumbles upon a bear, and she saves this bear, and her and this bear have this cute relationship and this friendship, and then she has to go away, and the bear is sad about this, and the bear would like to find her. The story of two friends separated by everything in the world except love. This was cute, but this was not special to me. It didn't hit me in the feels, and again, bear in mind when I read this, I was not in the healthiest of mental states. I wasn't feeling too great, and I think I wanted this to pack more of an emotional punch to me than it did, so again, I was a bit about it. But it was cute, and the art style is very cute, but yeah, a cute story of a young girl befriending a bear. Star rating wise, it got a 3-star as well from me. Then I once again wandered back into the land of romance, and I picked up Night Shift by, don't tell me, Annie Crown. Night Shift by Annie Crown. This was recommended by Steph, and I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it because the other romance I liked was F1, and I thought the only reason I really would have liked that is because it was an F1 romance. But I am very happy to have been proven wrong by Night Shift, and I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the F1 romance. Night Shift is about a college student named Kendall who works the night shift at the library. On a Friday night, she works the library. She's not a party girl, she's not into that. Her roommates are, but she's not. So she works at the library. And the star of the basketball team has injured his wrist. He is in the library on that Friday night because he needs to do some poetry homework, and he asks her to help him find some particular poetry books. And one thing very quickly leads to another, and they end up making out in the poetry section. Very quick. He doesn't even know her name. But then the rest of the book follows them building their relationship, the struggles of that, and it is very realistic, I think, of a first-time relationship. They're getting to know each other, they're getting to know each other's communications, they're getting to know how they feel in certain situations, and it was just really lovely to see how each of those characters consider each other. There was some missing communication in this. I'm not going to say miscommunication, because I don't think it was miscommunication, but there was a piece of missing communication, which is what led to, like, the drama in that relationship. But I ended up really enjoying that and enjoying how those characters considered each other. Like, he considered her anxiety, she considered his feelings in general, and I just think it was very sweet. And then the sexual content in there was, I feel, pretty realistic, again, of a first-time relationship. Like, the first time these two characters are having sex is very realistic for what that would be. It's not all, like, amazing fireworks. It's awkward and fumbly, and I think that was very well done. So I enjoyed that one a lot, and it ended up getting a 4-star from me. So a romance recommendation from Jade. Who would have thunk it? And next up is another one. Clearly, I was in a mood. I then read Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope. This one was spicier than the other two, definitely. There was more adult content in this one. But this one follows, again, struggling for names, Cece. This one follows Cece, who has just broken up with her hotshot lawyer fiancé in the big city and gone back to her family's ranch. Her brothers are there, and her brother's best friend has also moved back to their town, and he was a hotshot hockey player. He's retired from the world of hockey and is now, again, back in their town, helping Cece's family with the ranch. He's very integrated with the family, so it's like brother's best friend, brother's sister, best friend's sister even, like they're very off limits to each other, but of course that does not stop them. You can tell what happens next. Romances are very predictable, aren't they? But I enjoyed that one a lot as well. Again, I enjoyed it more than the F1 one, so it's not just the content that I enjoy, because hockey/cowboy romance is what that one is. But I had a good time. I didn't quite enjoy it as much as Night Shift. Night Shift is currently, like, my favourite romance. Never thought that was a phrase I would be saying in a wrap-up. But it got a 4-star again on Core Pile, but a bit lower than Night Shift. So yeah, there's the 3 romance books that I managed to get through in August. Who saw that coming? Next up, I read The Kamigawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwai. Translated by... who have we got? Jessie Kirkwood. This was brilliant. I really enjoyed this. This is about a father-daughter duo who own a restaurant that is very difficult to find. But if you find them and you go to them with a recipe that you need recreating for whatever reason, they are able to recreate it. A recipe from your memory, even if you can't remember it very clearly and it's just like, I had this particular spaghetti bolognese when I was a kid and I need it again. It's like a detective agency in that they ask you anything you can remember from the time to get clues from it, and then they are able to recreate that dish. And the ability behind that is like unlocking memories, getting you to a point where you need to be in life. Like, that recipe is important to you in that moment for a reason, and you need it for a reason, and it's able to enable you to move on, get to the next stage that you need to get to. I don't want to give too much away about like some of the stories within this, but each chapter is a different character coming into the Kamigawa restaurant with their own requirement of a meal, and how that meal helps them in making a decision or moving on to the next step in their life, and so on. I very much enjoyed this, and I believe the sequel to this comes out next month, and I'm very excited about that as well. So I enjoyed this a whole lot. And then I carried on a Japanese translated fiction vibe and picked up Days at the Murasaki Bookshop. This was a recommendation from Beth. This is by Satoshi Gagasawa, translated by Eric Azawa. This one is less of a... lots of different characters coming in to find what they need for the next step in life. But more so our main character, her uncle and her aunt, and how their relationship and their time at the bookshop helps them as a family progress and move on. So our main character starts this off by losing the man that she thought was the love of her life and losing her job. She falls into a bit of a depression, and her uncle is concerned for her and offers her to come and live with him in the bookshop and maybe work a few hours in the bookshop until she can get back on her feet. And that time spent in the bookshop is how she kind of builds herself back up, discovers a love of reading, builds a relationship with her uncle, discovers more about her aunt and uncle's history, and they progress as a family from some of the things that are going on with them. I won't say too much more than that because spoilers, but I, again, thoroughly enjoyed this and have picked up the sequel, would like to get to the sequel hopefully this month, but I very much enjoyed and have been really in this vibe of Japanese translated fiction, it seems, or like slice of life translated fiction. I'm saying translated specifically because I haven't read any English fiction that fits the same vibe. I've read 1 Korean one, 2 Japanese ones, and a German one, which I will get onto now, which is the Door Too Bookstore by, I don't have this physically, Karsten Hen. I don't know who this one was translated by, I'm sorry. But I read this one on my Kindle, and this similar vibe in a character, a bookstore, things happening in their life leading them into a dark patch, and then certain things pulling them back out of it again. This one follows an old man, and this old man has worked at this bookstore for years, and the owner of the bookstore has had to pass it down to his daughter, and he is in a care home. He's not doing too well, and that kind of changes our main character's life. I believe his name was Carl. It kind of changes his life, and the way the daughter wants to run the bookstore is very different to how her father did, and there are a lot of changes going on for him. And the role that he played was delivering books from the bookstore to people's houses. So we do also get a glimpse into all of his customers' lives and what's going on with them, and how the books that he delivers helps them in their particular situations. So it's kind of a good mix of that, snippets into little characters, and how books are able to help them progress in their life and help their situations, whatever they're in. But also Carl's situation is helped by a young girl who decides she wants to join him on his book delivery rounds. And I won't say too much more than that, again, because spoilers, I don't want to risk spoiling anything that happens there, but it was very heartwarming, very heartbreaking, and I thoroughly enjoyed. So yeah, I've done Korean, I've done Japanese, I've done German, I've got a few more Japanese translated ones that I want to get to as well, but I seem to really be enjoying that vibe at the minute, so if you've got any recommendations, I've mentioned it in a few vlogs, and I have had some recommendations come through, but I'm still open to taking more, because I'm really enjoying that at the minute. The next one that I read is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I was very much in the mood for unsettling, kind of creepy, not quite horror, but maybe a gothic horror sort of vibe. This isn't quite that vibe, but this was unpleasant in places. This one follows Mara. Mara is a princess. Mara has two older sisters who are married off to a prince. Her eldest sister dies. Her middle sister is suffering at the hands of an abusive prince. That's not a spoiler, it's the first line of the blurb. And Mara realises that no one is going to save her. This isn't a fairy tale. They might be princesses, but they are princesses of a tiny kingdom with two bigger powers either side of them. They need that alliance. No one is going to save her sister from the abusive prince. So Mara takes things into her own hands. She finds a dust witch, who is someone who can commune with the dead, and is given 3 impossible tasks. And if she completes those 3 impossible tasks, the dust wife will help her sister. On her quest, she's joined by the Grave Witch, who is the Dust Wife, a reluctant fairy godmother, a strapping former knight, and a chicken possessed by a demon. It's kind of funny. There is definitely some humour in there, and yeah, together they are trying to free Mara's sister from the hands of the abusive prince. And it is unpleasant. Like, there are unpleasant things happening. Not just the death of Mara's eldest sister, not just the abuse that her middle sister is then facing, but there is the undead, there is murder, there is grim things, and overall just the atmosphere is very dark. But with it being T. Kingfisher, that's what I wanted, that's what I expected. I ended up having a very good time with this and enjoying this very much. And rating wise, it got a 4.5 on Corepile. So a pretty high rating for this one, 8.14, which is, I believe, other than my rereads of the Schwab books, my highest rated book outside of rereads for the month. So go T. Kingfisher. I really enjoyed this, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more T. Kingfisher heading into the Halloween season, which hasn't started yet, but like, nearly. And then finally, the last book that I read in August is one that I don't really want to talk about very much because I hated it. It got 1 star, and that is Goblin Slayer Volume 1. Not into this. Did not like this whatsoever. It's kind of like typical roleplay adventure story. You're going to become an adventurer, you're going to go to the Adventurers Guild, you're going to find a quest, you're going to do the quest, you're going to redeem it for points. Our main character is Goblin Slayer, who takes on all the goblin quests. The female character is a new adventurer who, in her first adventure, her whole party dies. But not just that, the female characters are sexually assaulted by goblins. And I knew going into this that that is how our female character meets Goblin Slayer. That is the kind of catalyst that puts them together as characters. So I knew it would happen once. I didn't expect it to happen for the rest of the story to any female character that exists. This didn't need that. It was unnecessary. It became uncomfortable just to the degree that it was unnecessary. Like, of course, sexual assault is going to be uncomfortable all the time, and usually when it's written about, that's kind of the point, to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think if it had just been that first event, that catalyst event, it would have been uncomfortable, it would have been awful, but then maybe there could have been potential for the rest of the story to be somewhat enjoyable to read, but it just wasn't, because that was a persistent theme. And now, having read this and spoken to some other people about it, I know that this manga series in general is pretty problematic for what it has created outside of itself with goblin content. I don't want to talk about it. I'm unhauling this one as well. Do not recommend. 1 star. No. So we're ending on a low one, but that is that. That is everything that I read in August. And I will mention the ones that I did not finish. Shogun. Me and Gavin were gonna be buddy reading Shogun. I got 220 pages into that one, so a decent little chunk. I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. Gavin DNF'd it as well. It made me feel dumb. I'm putting it as a temporary DNF. I may well go back to it at some point in my life. Don't know when, though. And the other one is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I only got 40 pages into that one, but I was reading it at the same time as Shogun, and I think because Shogun was already making my brain feel like scrambled egg, I decided to just put that one down, pause, I'll come back to that at a later date, probably just start it fresh, because I was not far enough in to form any sort of opinion, and my brain just already felt like scrambled egg. And there we go. There is everything that I read in the month of August. I feel like this is one of the longest wrap-ups I've possibly ever done. Book-wise, that was 15 books, but we've DNF'd 2 of those, so. But that does mean, yeah, 4,375 pages. I had my second best reading month ever. Yet I still felt really pants about it because I wanted to hit 8,000. So that's now the challenge for September. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you ever so much for sticking with me to this point. If you are at this point in the video and you've watched the entire wrap-up... Oh, I'm going to do one of the emoji request things. What do I want? Is there a caterpillar emoji? A bug? A bug. Give me an emoji of a bug if you've got this far. But thanks for hanging out with me for a bit whilst I ramble on about those. I hope you have enjoyed. And I will see you in whatever comes next. Bye!